Hello friends and freundins and welcome to another episode of the Troglodyte channel. In this one I will complete the construction of the diorama which I began in the previous episode. It will eventually look pretty good if you want my opinion. So come on, let's see how I made it. As it so often happens with all great projects, this one started with somewhat of a small disaster. Because to prime it I used the black spray from AK, which itself it was perfectly fine, but it turns out that I didn't seal all of the holes and indentations very well with the Mod Podge previously, so this caused some parts of the diorama to melt slightly. Not anything terrible, but it definitely changed the texture in some places. Now the good news are that most of the damage was done on the church walls, which I wanted to look old but also heavily calcified, because this is the way they used to paint structures and some still do till today on the islands. The thickness of the lime gives a special texture to the walls. I think I achieved that even though by accident. It doesn't matter. So I painted all of the damaged spots with black acrylic and proceeded with the overall basic coloring of the diorama. First I painted the church white. Then I painted the hill base, that is the rocks, with a light grey. Then I painted the ground with a rather dull ochre color, which I will later change. Finally, I painted the marble base, the steps and the stones scattered around the area with the white acrylic, same as the church. I covered the ground with a lighter color, and then I proceeded to paint the rocks in more detail. Then again I added another earth tone to the ground. And while I was doing that, I decided to paint the marble base in a different white tone than the main structure. And now the difference between the calcified walls of the chapel and the white marble base will be more distinct. After that, I once again proceeded on detailing the rocks. I understand that the painting right now is a little bit all over the place, but this is happening because I have to figure out the tone of the base colors that satisfies me. So I kept adding various tones of browns and greys until I like the result. Then another heavy coating with white acrylic on the walls and the roof of the church. And of course I once again changed the color of the ground, but this time it was for good. I wouldn't need to change it again. After that, I proceeded with the weathering of the church and the bell tower. For this I used light brown wash and the grey Tamiya panel liner. I wanted my tiny chapel to look old, dirty and abandoned. So I heavily dry brushed the shingles and I painted the edges with a light grey, in order to give the look of a heavily worn down lime paint job. Then I did some light grey chipping, mostly on the roof, but also on the walls of the church. With a similar bluish grey, I painted the door and the small window. Which I then covered with chipping fluid from AK, waited for it to dry, and then painted them both all over again with a traditional Greek Island blue. After it was dry, I scraped most of the paint off with a wet brush. Then I painted the hinges and the doorknob with the trusty rust set from Life Color. I added some more chipping, some grey and black washes, and finally I believe I achieved the old rusty island door look. I do not want to bore you by showing you the way I painted the figures, because I don't know how to paint them. I only tried to follow the glazing technique from the Night Shift videos, which, unlike him, I did poorly, in my opinion. But with my current skills, well, it is what it is. You will judge the result in the end. Later, in order to add more detail to the terrain, I painted many stones and small rocks on the ground in various earth colors. The dry Aegean climate doesn't allow much vegetation on these islands, so in many places one only gets to see rocks and dry bushes. And this is what I tried to replicate over here. I added 2 different sizes of dry wild tufts from Vallejo, and some green ones with pink flowers on them that will represent bushes of thistle, or γαϊδουράκαθο as we call it in Greek. Also very little green grass to give some variety, and a few seafoam trees. So, ready to add my protagonists. But first, the vehicle, of course. The soldier will be positioned right there, next to his HORCH 4x4 tip 1 up. And the vampire, which is actually a zombie figure, but is very appropriate, will be positioned over here, on the edge. Finally, the bell, which as you can see has been improved since the last video. And that was it. My diorama is complete. And it shows the moment of an unfortunate encounter that a German soldier had with the local vampire. On the way back from his early morning routine drive to his salami and wine supplier, the soldier decided to make a short stop to admire this old abandoned chapel on the slopes of the hill. He had heard that when the early Christians arrived on this island, destroyed the ancient structure that once stood here, and years later a bunch of monks used these same stones to build the chapel. Little did he know, at the same time the vampire was returning from his midnight feast to his grave. The soldier got really scared, but immediately remembered his Wehrmacht training and grabbed his MP40 to defend himself. And now we are at this exact moment in time. Who knows what will happen next? Maybe the soldier gets lucky and manages to fend off this ghoul. Only the wind knows, or perhaps the sea, or maybe even the birds in the sky. I should also add that I used this zombie figure to represent a vampire because, like I said before, it is appropriate. This is a pretty close representation of how the standard Balkan vampire would have looked according to legends. And not like the romanticized image of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So this is it for now, friends and freundins. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. It helps with the algorithm. If you want to express your opinion, please do so at the comments section. I will be very happy to read about it. And remember, if you ever encounter a vampire on a beautiful sunny Greek island, always